Hello, hello, welcome. If you are new here, please subscribe and click the notification bell. Share everywhere. If you're returning, welcome home. The Color Purple, directed by Blitz Baswell. Screenplay by Marcus Gardley, based on The Color Purple. By Brenda Russell, produced by Oprah Winfrey, Steven Spielberg, Scott Sanders, Quincy Jones, starring Taraji P. Henson, Daniel Brooks, Coleman Domingo, Corey Hawkins, Her, Halle Bailey, Felicia Mpasi, and Fantasia. Overall, it's better than the original. I liked that there was a proper 3-act structure. There was the incident of Celie and Nettie. They started off with normal life. And then the incident was Celie being sold off to Mr. And then there was Nettie going to live with Celie and Mr. And then the first main reversal was Nettie being banished from Mr.'s house. And then there was an increase in conflict as Celie got adjusted to life with Mr. DV, domestic violence. Complications got a little bit better when Shug Avery entered into the picture. There also was a final struggle between Celie and Mr., between Sophia and her getting over the trauma of being in prison for years. And then you had Harpo kind of going against his dad. And then there was another part of the final struggle, which was Mr. talking down to Celie as she was leaving with Shug Avery, Squeak, and everybody else. There was the final climax as Mr. had his downfall and redemption arc. And then there was the ending with Celie's family being brought back to America. Overall, the structuring was good. I think they did a lot of proper elements, such as like showing Celie being afraid. There was times where you can kind of see it on her face, shaking a little bit. Even the part in the bedroom where she was hugging the bed rails. Really good showing as far as the feelings and everything involved. I felt the frustration. I also felt the nervousness of the characters. And I really felt when they were happy, especially with the music numbers that actually were really good. 2023 movie was based off of the Broadway show. I thought they did a really good job weaving in the singing with parts of the movie. It didn't feel like there was a breaking of suspend belief. I really believe that the singing numbers better conveyed what the characters were going through, how they were feeling. And it didn't really take me out of the story and make it seem like it was just a movie. They did a really good job of setting up situations. I liked the pacing and the progression. They kind of missed being able to add more complications. I never felt that there was a point in time where when Celie got the business, she was going to lose the business. I never felt that there was a situation where when Shug Avery got married, I didn't think she was going to lose her husband. When Squeak left Harpo, I never felt that Squeak did a bad decision. Also, in regards to Mr. and his father, I would have liked to see them have like an extra scene in addition to Mr. having the downfall and rebirth. The only part that I really felt the tension was when Sophia was having a conflict with the people in the town and then she got hit and knocked out. That was the only real tension that I felt. All in all, it was a decent movie for people who like musicals and people who like the original. I really do believe that people who may have not liked the original will like the 2023 version. And I think people who like the original will also like the 2023 version. I also liked how there was an emphasis on sisterhood, how Shug Avery, with her being loose and a wild woman, it seemed like she was the one to free Celie from her situation, and then Celie standing up to Mr. freed Sophia, and then Sophia being freed. It kind of helped further cement a sisterhood, and that women working together with other women can free each other, and through a sisterhood, they're able to stand strong together. Overall, I gave this movie a 9 out of 10. Should you see it? Yes. Should you pay to see it? I think so, especially if you like the original, especially if you like musicals, and especially if you just like drama, especially when it comes to women being empowered towards the end. Unfortunately, I have to discuss that there was an overshadowing of Taraji P. Henson while doing campaigning for the movie and promoting it. There was the overshadowing of the movie because Taraji was saying that she wasn't getting paid. And to me, that kind of took away from the promotion of the movie. Also, there was like a lot of great performances. Harpo had really 2 good numbers. I really didn't not like any of the music numbers. Overall, the cast was phenomenal. I just have nitpicks here and there as far as the journey. They showed where Mista and Celie's dad, Alfonso, negotiated for Alfonso's daughter's hands in marriage. And that's just kind of how it was back then, with pretty much men pawning off their daughters for resources, kind of like a dowry, if you will. And it just showed that women didn't have any agency. They didn't have a say so. But also this highlighted how Nettie, who was seen as smarter, was destined to be, according to Alfonso, a school teacher. So I think that the reason why Nettie was destined for this is not just because she was smart, but it's because she was a lighter shade than Celie. So the original Nettie was dark-skinned, just like Celie was, the original actress, Whoopi Goldberg. But for this 2023 version, they made Nettie a lighter shade as Halle Bailey and as Sierra. And I think they did that to kind of further show or cement that the lighter you are, the more opportunity you had during that time period. I think if Nettie would have been a darker shade, she would have suffered the same fate as Celie. It kind of appeared that Celie and Harpo were like the same age. Maybe in the original, I missed that. I never really just thought about that. When Celie was sold off to Mista, she was not just a child, but she was the same age as the other children who were there. In the original, they showed Celie struggling with combing the girl's hair and struggling to do other stuff. They showed her struggle more as the woman of the house. Whereas with this one, they still had scenes of DV, domestic violence, but I think the emphasis was more on Celie's experiencing this. Harpo sees it, and this is going to change Harpo's belief system and wanting to follow into his father's footsteps. I think Celie and Harpo were the same age, and that was kind of common back then, where you had these grown men who were in their 30s, maybe even 40s, going off and buying wives to be maids, and they're the same age as the kids. Unfortunately, Celie, like most women during her time who were sold off to be wives, they had to endure being a wife with wife duties, including having domestic violence stuff, violations, being a maid and a caretaker. So it's almost like you went from being carefree and free-spirited to being a slave. And I think the movie did a decent job in just kind of showing that in the original, they gave us the same amount of gloom and doom for Celie, whereas with the 2023 version, they did give us that same depiction. I think they did enough showing of what Celie was going through to communicate, hey, it just wasn't good to be a wife and be a dark-skinned Black woman. I'm willing to believe that based off of how people were talking about Nettie and how Nettie was somewhat treated, if Celie would have been a lighter shade, she would have had a different type of experience. But the other aspect is Celie did not have a family. Alfonso was her stepdad. They got rid of Nettie. Celie not having a family, not having any friends, in contrast to Sophia that had the sisterhood with her when she did her dance number. Even Shug Avery, when she ran away to become a blues singer, she had people who were kind of like worshiping her and made her feel like a queen. So just having a support system and people around you is the difference between you being Sophia, Shug Avery, or even Nettie compared to Celie. They lightwashed Nettie, and I think that was a good choice for the casting, because it wouldn't really make sense for Nettie to be deemed or destined to be a school teacher if she looked like Celie did, like in the original Color Purple. Some were saying that because Nettie was younger, that's the reason why she was spared. But I think her being a lighter shade is the movie's way of showing us how the closer you are to whiteness, the better off you're going to be. Now, I'm pretty sure Nettie's life was not going to necessarily be grand, because Nettie could not go back to her father, Alfonso, or the stepdad, Alfonso, because Alfonso tried to touch her. She said no. Mista tried to touch her. Nettie said no. So Nettie was basically homeless. She would still have to be sweet, if you will. But it's just that I believe that the men during that time, in addition to wanting to violate her, they would have still had her destined to be a teacher. And I think she would have even had an easier time getting a husband because of her looks and her complexion. So I think the pacing was good for the length of the movie, but I would have liked it to be shorter just because there was a lot of stuff that we could have skipped, such as music numbers, I would say, to cut out, such as with the railroad and Celie, after she was in the store at the end and Mr. came and said, I got this letter for you. And she realized her kids were coming back. They could have skipped that. They really could have skipped a lot of the dance numbers to make it shorter. But overall, I didn't feel like the movie was dragging on in certain scenes. I felt like every scene was important, just not every musical number was important. I don't think during that time period you really had any scholars. And I think the dialogue was fine. There was no point in time where I felt like any of the characters were dumber than they needed to be. And when the characters talked, it was really key to the scene and there wasn't any exposition, which I like. I can't say that there was any point in time where I was just like, okay, the scene is carrying on too long. They need to move faster. It seems like characters are doing things out of the realm of how they've been written. It seemed like the dialogue was fine. I didn't have a problem with it. They showed Mr. creeping into Nettie's room. I don't know where Nettie was sleeping. Mr. creeped in there like he was supposed to be in there, told her to be quiet and to be sweet, which meant that back then being violated was almost like a part of your gender. I noticed that when Nettie was ran off the property for not, quote unquote, being sweet, Celie was not. And it's because Celie was property. When Mr. traded his resources for Celie, Celie became Mr.'s property, whereas Nettie had not. And if you fought against a man and not being sweet, you were basically homeless. And Mr. had no problem making Nettie homeless because she wasn't putting out. So I think this right here just kind of shows how accepting it was of people being violated and how you really can't be your grandparents or your great grandmother or even older than that, just because the time period they lived in, not only did they not have any rights or any type of agency, but it was the things that were negative and barbaric were socially acceptable. I think it was good to show that just because this is the type of situation you would have if you had a woman who became someone's property as their wife and she decided to bring, let's say, her sister along or maybe even her daughter. The daughter would have been asked to be sweet as well. So what do you think? Let me know in the comment section your thoughts. Thumbs up the video, share to your social media, subscribe, click the notification bell. Thanks for watching. Go forth, do great things, and I'm out. Peace.
Spade. Parkland.
Cash app car when I cash her out. No. Cash app, then I ask her out. Cash app.
Get on your Cash App $
Spade. Parkland.
We're going to start getting some work done, family. So please get them donations in. Get them in. $
Spade. Parkland.